All right, what up? It is Thursday, May 13th. You are here listening to the Hi There Show, the only show on the internet that asks, hey, have you had any good experiences lately? I am Nick Brunt, a UX designer. That's our new opening line, and I hope you like it. Joined as always with Ian Conrad, another UX designer. How's it going this week,
Hey,
Ian?
yo, it's good. I've had some experiences for sure
Have
this
you
week,
had some
Nick.
experiences?
I've
As
had
a
some
user, you
as
had
a
some experiences.
as a user, I have had some experiences this week, some good,
Some bad,
some neutral, I
most
would
bad.
say.
I would say as a designer, I find most things I do and see kind of bad. What do you think about that?
I can find the negative in pretty much
And just about
anything, Nick.
anything, it kind of gets tainted. I like way back when the first few years I was working in design, I was doing web design in like an advertising capacity,
Mm.
and it's one of those things where once you get into it, you never ever see it the same again. And I feel the same about websites and apps. I just hate those dang things.
Hate them. I don't look forward to using them. I think
Hate
I've
them.
trained myself to like try and pick out when you're younger, it's
Inconsistencies.
like I didn't have as many big and good ideas, so I tried to pick out little things, and I think you learn to
Became
you learn to
cynical and horrible,
exactly, yeah, you learn to pick
twisted
out
over
bad
time.
experiences, and it warps your brain,
Mm-hmm.
and then you use a bank app, and
Then
none
use
of
a
them are
bank
good.
app. None of them are good. You literally have all of the money. How isn't your app good? This can't be
Yeah,
an issue
yeah,
of
you
budget
have.
or
I know.
timeline. You've
Yeah,
existed forever and you own the money.
I know from personal experience that regulations play a big role in what you're allowed to do, but
Well,
that shouldn't.
we're in Canada and it's kind of wacky up here, so I'm told.
Probably even stricter regulations, fewer banks. I guess they don't need to compete with each other. There's only like five, isn't there?
Yeah,
I think
five. You just have
five.
a meeting once a month of all the bankmen. Oh
Well, it looks
man,
like we have all the money. All right. Well, yeah. We're back on Alan
what's
Dracula
we're
or
back on?
James
Yeah, this
Dracula.
is. I think this is episode two. This is one of the funner ones.
This is back from episode 2.
Yeah, we're just using this file because, of course, the Figma free account only gives us so many pages, and we're holding out.
Yeah, we're gonna milk this free Figma account.
I have a work account. Do you have a work account? I have a work account for everything. So in my brain, I own every piece of software, but truly don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a work account. We're at the middle level, and we're not at like the super enterprise level, but we have like team libraries and all that jazz for Figma.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty
But
cool.
we got to be
Maybe we should
careful
work on
because
this. I was kind of hoping that you and I could talk about variants this week, or at least talk about variants while we're doing everything else, because I've been using Figma a lot lately, and I love variants. For listeners, they're sort of um, they're components with different variations, so you can switch between them, and that's super handy when you're prototyping and doing a design system. So
yeah,
Ian knows literally every fact on the planet about variants. So I'm excited. You should be too. To join him on
Professor
this journey.
Figma coming up. I've played around with variants in Adobe XD even more so. I haven't gotten super into the variants in Figma because I got into we made our design system before that new variants feature existed,
Mm-hmm.
and so there used to be different ways to kind of make variants in Figma. They didn't call it that, but it did the same thing. But I think the new ways probably got some advantages. So I'm curious to kind of play around with it more, because the way I used to make the variants is I would like duplicate a symbol, or not a symbol, component, or symbols in
Mm-hmm.
Sketch, and then you nest that symbol, you nest that instance inside of a new component, so it's that you start to get like nesting going on, which
To make
it solved the issues, but there were a few other issues with trying to do it. So variants.
yeah,
What did you
variants in
think?
XD are a little more free flowing. I find
I like it.
I
Yeah.
end up making a lot of variants without knowing about it, just because I need to work and then not tracking that back, and that's sort of a huge issue. Variants. I work in
It
XD every single day of my life.
Adobe
Um,
XD. XD every day.
Yeah, XD is pretty cool.
Oh well, I like the idea. I'd like to explore some variants with you, Nick. Have some
Explore
experience
some
with that.
variants. Let's go down a variant rabbit hole as we chat about other things, as we do on the Hi There show. Pull
Now,
up my list.
what could we make a variant? What could we make of a variant? My first boring idea is buttons because that's what I was just doing earlier today, making like different button states. But there,
Buttons
you
are
could do forms, you could do checkboxes, or I don't know. Do you have any ideas of what you want to make a variant for?
buttons are cool.
We can start with a button and go from there because buttons are fun.
Yeah,
Maybe we
let's
can
start
even
with a button. Let's go from there, and then let's go into items in our shop here. We'll clean those up and maybe do a
you could
proper
even
nav.
do like buttons with icons in them. Like that's kind of fun.
Okay, yeah, that is fun.
Or
Icons are
like
fun.
that could
I have my skeletal hand here.
we have a variant like in our design system at work. We have a variant of buttons that have icons in them that we can turn on and off. That's kind of cool. But we don't do it the new cool way. So I actually
Yeah,
I'm
see,
gonna get
so
up to speed on that.
I'm not boned up on the new cool way, and that's what I want to know. I'm actually using you tonight to tutorialize all of this to me.
The new cool way. All right, sweet. Well, I will practice. That's good because we have to. We're rebuilding we're updating our design system, and I could use some. I want to show up like I'm a pro at this. Like I've done it before a million times.
Well, that's definitely the spirit of the show, is that we know exactly what we're doing, and you're here because we're thought leaders in our industry. So, I mean, go ahead, show us your flawless delivery.
All
Make it
right,
as you present.
let's zoom
Do
up.
art. I'm waiting for the performance of a lifetime here.
Okay. Oof. I'm gonna make our button base, and now here's where we diverge from XD and Figma in the biggest way. And it's interesting actually. I've been watching. I think I mentioned last time we had 3 new people join our team where
Mm-hmm.
I work, and
And you're ramping them up.
ramping them up, and they're not really Figma. They weren't really using Figma before. A couple were XD and one was Sketch, and so I'm kind of noticing like, oh okay, here's some of the differences in XD and whatnot.
Sketch to me is like, and I know that this is probably an incorrect perception that the Sketch people would have, but it's sort of like the Mad Max, like Linux OS version of design software, where it's like, no, it's really good. You just need to install these 15 plugins from like this Russian website, and you got to go to this dicey place because it does this. And you know what? Get these IPS files from GitHub and use a patcher to install. Like, you know, it's just too much.
Yeah,
That's a
I haven't
that's
used
a
it in so long. I think they're trying to play catch up a bit with Figma. But
I
yeah,
I would
so
imagine. You know who I've seen a lot of lately? Have you ever used Webflow? I used it like,
someone,
God, like 6 years ago,
what
five,
what
six
is
years
it?
ago.
I feel like someone mentioned it to me recently, and I checked it out, and now I forget what it is.
I remember it as design software that was very CSS dependent.
Okay.
Like, you made elements and you moved them around the page, but everything that you chose was like directly related to CSS. Like, you adjusted the padding, you adjusted the margins. Um, you know, you did all that stuff on the fly, and that's how you would construct your layouts. But I mean, that was so long ago. I have no idea what it does.
Mm.
They had this neat UI bit that was sort of like a box model thing. Maybe I can draw it up here real quick, but it would sort of have the box and then these increase arrows on either side, and one would be padding and one would be margin,
Okay.
and you would edit all boxes with this like set of tools. If my cool
That's
wireframe
cool.
here makes any sense. Anyway, I keep seeing it. Like, I'm getting advertised for it everywhere, and I assume that we're part of that demographic. So I don't know. They're doing a push. Everyone's doing a push.
Be worth
I
checking
saw
out.
another. Oh man, what was it called? It's called like Mock It.
Mock it. I've not heard of that one.
Wondershare Mock It, a free online design, scale your design thinking, an online design prototyping and collaboration platform. It looks like multi-user. It's Figma. Like, they're trying to make Figma. even down to, you know, the share button in the upper right and the play button in this layout, it's there. Holy, yeah, shit. That's what I'm looking at. So get Wondershare Mock It. It's dollar store Figma. Maybe in 10 years they'll be cool.
Maybe they're just like, if we do a good enough job, Figma will just buy us so we don't compete with them. Get us while we're cheap.
Can you imagine? That's some like throwing the dice software development right there.
That's one monetization strategy.
Have you ever worked for or with a startup that was hoping to get bought? I actually think we both have.
Mm,
You and I worked for, I wish we could talk about all this stuff on stream, but you and I worked for a very early phase startup at one point in time that was surely a contender to get bought.
I'm trying to think of which one because there's more than one in my head. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
Was it about maps?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I still have those files. Let me tell you, we are both better designers nowadays.
Yeah. I worked at a startup that was actively trying to get funding. And I went to a bunch of pitches. I didn't do the pitch, but I saw my
That's cool.
founders do pitch meetings. And that was interesting. Eventually, you just don't get the funding.
Like capital? Like you were trying to convince people to just give you money?
Yeah, they were trying to get like millions of dollars.
Wild. I've written on grants before. Never like hey, you have money. Can I have some of it?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Everyone did better than we did. We had a little web scene in our city. Like we had one of those common work area kind of dealies. We get to hang out with everyone, do all the work. That was fun.
I'm curious about those again. So I'm making this button here, and so the secret thing.
Can we see your UI on stream?
I should be able to turn that on. See if that's any.
That'd be cool.
Hold on. I have to get two mice up on the screen. I can kind of do. I don't know if you can see my mouse on the stream.
Let me check. I can see your mouse. I can see a green mouse and I can see a purple mouse.
I don't know if you can see it now once I
can see me. No, okay, I see a purple cursor. Sorry, everyone. We're doing a little IT work here. I can see a purple cursor and your UI.
All right.
Select something.
I don't think the UI is going to be super visible, but that's okay. We can try.
It's enough.
So what I'm trying to do with this button. So first, it's these weird frames in Figma. So instead of putting a rectangle in the background, you can skip that step and just because you're going to have to wrap this in a frame or group anyway, and you might as well just give the background color of your button to the frame. That way, when we resize everything, we don't have like this weird rectangle that we've got to tell what to do. It's just one less thing in there.
Okay.
Oops. So I'm thinking about it. If we're going to make variants, right? We're going to be wanting to reuse these buttons. I'm thinking, what are the characteristics of a button if it's going to need to get reused? So one of them is, if I change the size of it, I want a button might be small or it might get wider. That happens to us in our design system. So I want the button to be able to resize and keep the text in the middle. So this is where we do, so I put my text in my frame, and that's where I do like the center in the center on the constraints area. So no matter what size I make this button, the text is always going to be in the center. But the padding on this is kind of crap. So I think
a little bit, but it seems like you're controlling it.
Once I pick a different color, I need a nice color. This red.
I don't know. What's a good color? What's the best color? Not purple. I hate purple. I don't think I've ever designed anything where purple is a predominant color.
Yeah, purple's
dumb. Don't tell anyone that though, because I get fired maybe.
I was almost trying to like pitch purple
yeah,
in a meeting. It's just like purple's the new.
Purple's cool.
I guess one of our competitors is purple though. So
I would say Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So I've got this text centered, and so the other thing is like the text in the button we want it to be able to handle anything without having to do any changes. So I'm also making this button so that you can change the text in it and it stays in the center. Now, to make an icon, we're going to be in a whole other story, but that'll be fun.
Well, that's what I'm kind of wondering. Like, how do I? Okay, well, that's cool, but how do I anchor an icon with a certain amount of padding, with text with a certain amount of padding? I mean, at that point, you're talking about just doing front end design, but it would be interesting.
I think of it like almost. I do kind of think of it as I'm doing like front end design almost.
In gray model, I think okay, here. I think it's the difference between making a text box and a piece of text. Is it not? Sorry, go ahead, do your thing.
I'm trying to think. So what I realized I did wrong was that with the whole constraint thing, that doesn't matter because I'm going to turn this thing into an auto layout because I want the size of the button to be able to change based on the text. I want to set padding basically.
Will it pad automatically if you change that text?
Yeah.
Oh, we're like halfway to a website.
Yeah, buttons are pretty good in this sense. So I'm going to hit this auto layout button and add an auto layout to this. It's going to change some size of stuff for me. But what I want to do is, you can see the padding, it says mixed because it just kind of took the padding that I had in there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to change this and we're just going to say, we can decide, we can put uniform padding or we can do different all around. I don't know what to pick. I'll just do 10. Actually, that's not enough. 12 pixels, and then like 24 and 24. I don't know if that's good, but that's okay. We can change it if we want.
Okay.
So
I'm enthralled. I'm over here like making components. Look, I got an anchor to the left. Nice. Constraints panel.
Constraints, it's either constraints or auto layouts. So now, what else do we want to do? We can round this a bit, I guess.
Well, I've got a pretty fancy button down here, so...
Dope. So we got a couple buttons. What else might a button... What else do you have to do to a button? Create. I guess I could make it a component.
Wait, you haven't made it a component?
I hadn't. It is now.
Huh.
So now I can do an instance of that. So now I've got this component. It can live on its own. But then we can have, any time we want to use that button, we just grab it from our library and then it resizes itself to fit.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't have chose red because I'm going to, for the sake of...
Like showing states?
Yeah, I want to use red as like a delete function.
Yeah, red's not a great confirmation function. Now, on Alan Dracula's Drape Shop, I'll tell you, red's where you want to go. Oh, but yeah, I mean, typically, you want to avoid things that are red and green anyway. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever done like a red, green, orange sort of indication system that I thought was accessible.
We ran into that issue too.
For the blind of color, which is actually surprisingly a lot of people. Especially red-green colorblind. But, I mean, there's other mechanisms there. Like, you have supporting copy and stuff like that. Ooh, blue is a confirmation color. That's I feel nice like color. Blue is move forward, maybe not, and green is always going to be confirm.
All right, well, let's see what happens with this variant.
Okay. Show me, do your magic tricks.
I actually don't even know what's going to happen. I'm going to click variant. All right. Oh, have done. We did this before. So we made another variant. I'm going to call this one disabled. This is a button that you can't click on because you haven't finished filling out your form. All right. So I've got a variant. Property 1. Oh, wait.
I do want to take a moment to shout out that components in Figma have in the UI fields for description and documentation link. It's super handy when you're building a design system.
I was just looking at that. Yeah.
Is that brand new? Because I don't think I've ever seen it
It's
before.
part of the new variant stuff, yeah. The description's interesting. I wonder how you change that property one word.
I try to always make sure that I'm designing things with the idea that another designer may need to pick it up later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's
That
easy
was a
to
good
not
point.
it's easy to not
That's
do
a
that.
very good point.
Labeling and naming stuff properly and
I'm so sick of labeling things and giving them names. Oh man. I gave a presentation the other day, and like, to be fair, it's just like, hey, this is where we're at. Let's take a look and talk about it. But on the left side of my screen is like component 27, component 147, object
mm,
and group 12 and shit like this. And I'm just like, oh man. Everybody knows. I'm sorry, I have a messy file. I have a messy file. I'm not the worst. Not the best, but I'm not the worst.
um
What about that? Huh?
I don't know.
Huh?
What happens if I make a variant out of that? How do I add another variant? Oh, I just click this button, right?
What buttons are you clicking? Tell me.
This little plus at the bottom of this thing. So now I'm gonna make this, we'll call this, I mean, we could do something fun, like we could really go nuts. Put a inside stroke on there, call it red. Make the inside let's take that fill right out.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm being all dead air over here, but
Danger. Call that a danger button if you wanted to. You can pump that stroke up a bit.
a danger button. What happens when you click the danger button? At what point in a UI would the UI
Bad.
need to say, hey, danger?
Bad things. Like delete. We have
Delete.
we have it for delete. Or like, yeah, delete or remove things. So there's some
Let me know.
variants.
Ian, can you still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Our stream health is excellent. Connection. Can't even read. All right, so there's some variants. And then I guess if we did something to the main one.
Okay. I'm here. I'm with you.
I don't quite know what this property ones does. Button. Oh, okay.
Property one.
Oh, we can
Default
rename.
disabled.
Okay. I was like, what does?
You're just naming it, yeah. Can you add an additional property?
Oh, that's
Property
not how it
one.
works. What? We're learning together.
We are learning together. Okay.
There's a
variants
thing
have
called
properties.
like
Add new variant, add new property. Let's
add new
read
variant.
aloud.
Okay. This is way different than XD.
XD is just like whatever. We're basically groups you can turn off on.
Well, yeah, you just I don't understand how this works yet.
I don't either.
Like,
properties
I don't know how
are the variable aspects of your components. For example, the properties of a button could be the type, size, state, or whether it has an icon. Values are the different options available for each property. For example, the state a property could have default, hover, press, disabled.
Oh, okay. So we would call this state.
Property and value is weird. Property and value is in action. If you can see this diagram I'm looking at, oh my god.
I just don't.
They're just a couple sort of. Oh shit.
I just
Okay.
don't get it.
Properties are breaking out. Look, I can show you this. I'm gonna pull a screenshot of the things. Properties in Figma variants, are essentially breaking out the different components. So you can turn on variants from the icon, like you can change the icon, you can change the type, and you can change them all like individually. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So we have primary,
Kind of.
secondary type, large, small button, default pressed, inactive state. So I could have a secondary type option that is inactive and also false for some fucking reason. I mean, at the end of the day, like on the web, buttons don't necessarily get that complicated. However, there's huge like sort of corporate software implications for that kind of stuff. Like when it gets really complicated,
Yeah, and well,
it's
the
wild.
benefit of using like the component library too is like in a situation like us where we have, 1,000 pages designed with this button is on 1,000 different pages, and then someone comes along and says the font shouldn't be bold. Then I can
Mm-hmm.
go, oh, here we go. The font's not bold anymore. And then it should cascade, but I don't I would expect this change to affect all my variants too. That's what I'm
Uh,
confused about because the way I used to do variants, if I change the main component that
mm-hmm.
the variations are based on, like if I were to make this text regular instead of bold, it
Mm-hmm.
should cascade through all of my variants because I obviously want all the buttons to be not bold. So I wonder, are you supposed to
I,
do it individually? Like I guess
I
it would.
guess it gives you the control to, but I agree with you in that say each one of these properties had, 3 or 4 options in it, you're going to create ambiguity, I think, in terms of, well, what is the combination of the button that I need to use here rather than the specific variant. Like, is that what you mean? Because this is adding another vector with which to sort of manipulate this stuff on the fly.
Yeah, it works differently than I would expect. I'll have to, yeah, we just have to play around with it. Um, because like to me, I have this button, right? Like I'm designing a site. I need 3 buttons on it, but I want one to be disabled and I want one to be danger. So how do I do that?
Well, you would
Ah, here we
select
go.
the state.
Yeah. So that works as expected. I thought maybe I wasn't going to be able to do that. So that's dope. Because that's how like XD works. I'll just like jam in a bunch
Yeah.
of buttons and then I'll change my variant.
For the most part, that's what you want. But I can see a secondary control mechanism being really helpful, particularly through prototyping. So let's get our full design system on display and sort of mess with it in a way where we can understand what's going on, if that makes sense, or make new things, or make it way complicated.
Hmm. Interesting.
Okay, I get it. It's not difficult. We can add a million variants. We've created them, so now we have buttons.
So with this variant, can I jam an icon into this then? Because before, if I
As far as I could tell, you could put anything in this
interesting.
variant frame, and that would count in that variant. You could put raster graphics and this bright blue box, and when I change that variant, it's going to have the bright blue box in it.
Okay, this is still pretty
So
good.
it is, yeah, I mean, so sky's the limit, right? Like you keep these things rendered the same because that's how the design system needs to work. This could be a completely different state. Like it could be a non-button because you need to turn it off in certain states and you just like pull the fill out. Or I guess delete the button, but maybe you don't want to break your layouts or whatever.
Icon call this one icon left.
Icon left. Well,
Icon
this
on
is
the
deeply
left.
fascinating. I know there's going to be other people out there, other designers that find this fascinating too. Where is...
Interesting. What happens with this? So if I want to make a really fast other button, can I do this? So when you add something, it makes the default. So let's say maybe I don't want that. Icon right, can I do that?
I think icon right. You could flip that icon around. As far as I can tell, that icon is not associated with the other ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is more like XD. Because with XD, you can alter the variants. And I always thought that was weird because with the way I do Figma, like it won't let you.
Is there a drop down in XD similar to Figma though, where you can actually just select it? Because as far as I could tell in XD, like you just sort of need to go with it.
Yeah, it has the same thing on the side where you choose the variant.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a drop down; it's just a list. But XD also has like it's a little bit different. Like it's more XD is made. I feel like it's made by like web designers because everything in XD kind of like they talk in like web terms like
It is
padding.
reflective of the web, not like, a major sort of corporate application.
Like they use words like padding and stuff. I guess they use it in Figma now. But instead of auto layout, they call it like responsive design and stuff like that. Whereas,
Yeah.
and like, and they deliberately have like, I guess they don't, but in the prototyping, you can you can change variants with the prototype action. So you can like have a when on hover, change this from variant normal to variant hover state, which is actually lets you do a lot of stuff that Figma can't do.
XD is pretty cool.
Because you can't hover in Figma easily. Figma has no hover functionality. Well, it does, but it's not good.
I've never done that with XD, but the prototyping functionality in XD is pretty cool. And I mean, it's Adobe. They're a powerhouse. They have billions of dollars. They're the UI kings. Like all of the layouts that you see in every one of these design apps is based on Adobe layouts, Adobe UIs, and tool sets have been happening for decades. So it's kind of a tough one because they're in terms of ease of use, like XD is amazing. But I don't know. It feels a little hands off. Where with Figma, I can give things very exact values, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. What are you doing?
Just making a copy of this instance of this
These are
button.
too many buttons. Get rid of them.
So the other way I used to do variants was just like you just have your button, right? And it's like, all right, I'm using my button, and then I just okay,
And then you would change it.
I don't want the icon, I just hide it. And it's like if I want it, then I just show it. You just hide and show elements to make them appear, right? Instead of having the variant as a thing, you just
Well, XD is a little weird.
that
Like
works
if
too.
you create a variant of a component, you can do that by copying it and you change the text. The text in this variant is now different. If I were to change that in the master, the text in the variant doesn't change.
Right.
Although that just happened there.
That's the same with Figma too. Once you
Yeah.
change an instance, it won't be overridden.
Once you besmirch a variant, once you infuck it with some sort of change, it won't change back. That's where you start to lose track. Like you'll make hundreds of these things across very many layouts, and you have to be careful not to do that.
Oh, you can change. You can't do it. You used to be able to push. Oh yeah, you can. So let's say you alter your variant, and you like it more than your main state. You can push
reset all
the overrides
overrides
to the main component. Let's see if that actually works before I've done it before, but not often. Oh yeah, so it did.
Whoa.
Although it didn't work, as we can
Why
see.
doesn't this thing just take the extra step of writing CSS?
It does,
Is this
doesn't
not
it?
like 3/4? I don't know. Is there an export to fully functional website? Export.
All we get is
Eh.
like width and height, and we don't really get CSS. We get, oh yeah, we do.
Well, and there's an argument to be made where a computer can't intelligibly write CSS, but it probably could.
Well, with
I
these it
would
can.
really love imagine a visual layout like this, like a GUI, a graphical user interface, where you're actually affecting things that get pushed to the style sheet. So you're working on these variants. The variants are generated. Okay, yeah. Well, I mean,
I feel
this
like
is
it's
what XD
coming.
does too.
I mean,
Sort of. This is not the best.
this isn't good CSS because I don't know
No,
why
it's
you have
not.
position absolute there, but
You just couldn't because it is
the padding
absolutely
and the height and width
hypothetically.
is right. But who
Yeah.
cares about height and width? Like you shouldn't. Yeah, so this is shit because height and width and don't
Well, it might
you don't
be
put height and width on
height
stuff.
might be
Height maybe,
valuable
yeah.
in very certain circumstances, but yeah, it's just coverall CSS that's not very good.
Because these aren't built by height and width; they're built by padding. So the padding here is great, but like the height, like those are absolutes, and only
Well,
you know who
height,
deals in
yeah,
absolutes, Nick? Sith, the Sith.
the Sith, like
So
from Star Wars.
yeah,
I've known you for like a 15 years, and we've never spoken about Star Wars once.
I don't know. I've been dropping hints.
You didn't.
Like,
Maybe if you just clued in and watched the movies with me, we'd be better friends at this point. And that's why we're not. That's why we're having all these problems that the viewers don't know about. That the problems that we're having off camera.
the problems that that just run deep.
This runs so deep, like I don't know, a very deep river. Um. Okay. Yeah. No. Totally. I mean, I think in CSS, height says I am 40 pixels tall, not that I can only be 40 pixels tall.
Mm. I guess our height of buttons never changes.
I don't
That's
even know
fine. I
anymore,
shouldn't get
dude.
so upset at that.
I talk to developers, especially our front end people sometimes, and they're way up on React front ends and all this stuff, and things that I thought would be totally crazy, like make the most sense to them now. Also paired with variables in CSS, like ifs,
Ooh, God. That sounds cool, but
like
that's
adding logic to CSS, like if is actually someone's listening to this and they're gritting their teeth. Maybe not if, but
well, they can get their own
adding
fucking
really
YouTube
basic
channel.
logic to CSS. Adding enough logic to CSS that I think that you could make a video game purely out of CSS3 and React and JavaScript. How's that for hard-hitting UX news? Speaking of which, we usually have a news section in this show, and I've been checking out the news lately, and I could find nothing in the startup world.
Oh, startup world stuff.
Like, have you heard anything? Not the startup world, like who's getting acquired? Like, what's new and cool in UX UI? I couldn't figure out anything. That pipeline ransomware attack was pretty cool.
That was I specifically read up on that to make sure I knew what was going on.
As soon as I read ransomware, that's very funny.
Yeah,
that means Susan in HR clicked an executable she shouldn't have.
Yes, that is probably how it happened. I mean, none of these companies all these big companies. I mean, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say this, but
no, tell us
they
about
already
those
know.
Big companies.
No, companies don't take like their companies are all reactive pretty much. Aside from probably the banks and PayPal and like Apple, most companies are very reactive to security because they don't want to pay the money to make their stuff secure. So everything out there is like it's everything's going to get hacked, and it if you really look into these ransomware things, there's a ton of them that have occurred, and they usually pay. That usually works. They got a lot of police. They go after a lot of like police stations, and then they like threaten to release like the data and stuff. But yeah, so security just isn't now they'll probably, you know, pay someone to like look at their security, whatever. But yeah, it's pretty wide open. And yeah, so ransomware, what happened there? The ransomware
Details
by
are
cyber criminals.
by cyber criminals, hacker types. Um,
Hackers and crackers.
they built something that infiltrated their system. I don't know anything about that end of things.
They
It
get
is
in.
fascinating to me, though.
I think they just hack in and then they lock it. They like put a new password. Like, you know, for all intents and purposes, they kind of like change the password so you're locked out of your own system. And then they say if you want back in, you
Isn't
gotta
that a
pay.
weird thing? I mean, we've both worked with some pretty big clients, and you're building something for a client, and it costs a lot of money, and it takes a lot of talent and a lot of time from different people to build. And then at the end of the day, you just log into a website and like hit submit, and it's the weirdest feeling. Like this product that represents so much time and effort, all it comes down to is somebody like logging into their Apple panel and like
Yeah,
submitting
they're
the files.
not even reading any of the text that's on there.
No, they have no idea. They're just like, sure, 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 sure. Cool. Let's get this thing launched. It's right before Christmas. Let's get this thing launched. Is a thing that happened to someone once.
Yeah, it's Friday. It's the Friday before Christmas.
Why not launch? I've never had a product launch that's like a Tuesday afternoon and everyone's like happy and it goes well. It's always, well, no, they go well. It's just always sort of a stressful endeavor that's on like a Friday afternoon or something.
Everyone's like, please, please work. Please don't launch stuff on Fridays.
Don't launch stuff on Fridays. Don't do build commits.
Never.
Gold Masters don't happen on Friday.
Variants of a button. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that was a cool news story. Ransomware taking down a pipeline.
Oh,
Bad
and
user
the interesting thing
experience.
is, I read somewhere that they the ransomware didn't shut everything down. They shut everything down when they got hacked because it affected their payment system and they wouldn't be able to. The gas didn't stop flowing. It's their system got messed up, and so they wouldn't have been able to charge people for the fuel or oil or gas or whatever the heck was there, and so they shut it down.
So this is like a weird tangent. I worked adjacent to a commodity trading firm at one point, doing what we do for a job.
Okay.
And the weird thing about oil's a commodity that people trade, and they move through a pipeline through the U.S. through several pipelines, dozens of pipelines, dozens. Um,
Hundreds.
and I mean, it's like these sort of main pipelines that offshoot into other pipelines, but that oil is always flowing. And when you're buying and selling oil, you're buying like chunks of that stuff that is flowing through the pipes through different junctions and whatnot.
Hmm.
So as a commodity trader, like you're trader A and I'm trader B, and you want to buy 10,000 gallons of oil from me,
Mm-hmm.
you sort of like book a piece of oil that exists in the pipeline before it's totally bizarre.
Wild.
That
I
was
bet
an
the price
awful.
constantly changes.
And the price is constantly changing, and it costs like if you want to move your oil through someone else's pipeline, you have to pay them a commission. You also have to give them a certain amount of your oil to fuel the pumps that make the oil go through the pipes.
Oh,
It's
weird.
Yeah, it's wild. You gotta give them a little oil. Give them a little oil. Burn that oil. Get the pumps going. It's crazy. I'm glad I work on apps and websites.
Hmm.
Fun things. All right, we have variant buttons. We get it. What else can we do? What else is going on? Should we take a break? Should we do
Yeah.
a mid
We should take a
episode?
little break. I just did a variant in the old style just to show you. All I did was like, so you create your component Then you make an instance of it, and then you create a component out of that instance.
Mhm.
And it kind of like nests it nests that instance inside of a new component. It can get
Mhm.
convoluted, so I think that's probably why they're doing it in this way. But kind of, I'm old fashioned, and I kind of like it because then I could change those other buttons by like everything I do to this original main button like affects the other ones more directly. So I could like change the text, and it would
Yeah.
cascade like across everything. So
And for 90% of your applications of this kind of thing, that's going to do it. You know what I mean? Like if you can make a button in 10 different states and use it around your site, that's fine. I also like the idea of building it like this because if you put this stuff in a frame, like these component lists, and then
mhm.
exported that as a PDF, you're halfway to a document that you can present to a client. You're
Oh,
like,
that's
hey, here's
yeah.
all our components. Like, no problem. I was building them as I go. They're all on a PDF. I've labeled them.
That's a good point. Yeah, that
Because you
looks
got to make a
good.
document. Yeah, like looks
Interesting.
half cool. I mean, documents are a pain in the ass, but eventually you have to show your work to non-technical people. So you end up writing all that stuff down. At least I do. I had somebody like grimace at the idea that I made a PDF the other day, and it's like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna make a document for 75-year-old Czech writers that own companies because they don't get your cool Miro board? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I need a document that's portable.
Hmm.
I need a document format that's portable, and that's that putting the P in the PDF.
I always offer to putting a P in. It is
Wait,
portable. Is it portable or printable? It's portable. It's not
no,
printable.
wait. PDF, portable. I think it's portable
Portable
document format.
document format. Yeah. Yeah, it's just meant to be a solid file that you can move around and you don't need to own Word to look at it.
Imagine the days before documents were not portable. Like, imagine someone invented the PDF and it's like, oh, thank God, I can move my document around.
Well, and you know who invented that?
Adobe?
I think it was Adobe. PDF portable document is standardized file format developed by Adobe in 1993. Holy shoot. You could probably only print them back then or something weird.
Yeah, or you had to pay Adobe. I don't know. I'm glad they kind of exist now,
It was
and you
probably a
can
way
make
to
them.
send documents around that would print the same way,
Definitely
no
was
matter
like,
where you sent them.
yeah, someone sent a Word document and was like, I don't have the font, and then it just didn't print.
Um,
Unfuckupable Word documents. That's probably the code
Unfuckupable
name
Word
inside was
documents.
called.
I mean, I still use them. Another thing I find important too, for documentation, on documentation, is um, the people you're working with a lot of the times like need to sell it up the chain.
Mm,
So whether I don't know if you're a vendor, it's probably like a procurement person, or if you're like on a longer term contract, um, it's probably someone else. But they have to prove to their boss why they get a budget to hire you. So when you create that documentation, it gives them something they can go to their boss to and go like, "Hey, we did this cool stuff." I've even offered to white paper like wireframes and stuff before.
oh yeah.
So like, I mean, obviously you're working with us, but hey, this is part of your division and your division is paying for it. So why don't we put your logo on it? And then when you go through that sales process up the chain, it's going to make it look that much more impressive. It matters, because they didn't get the budget most times. They were given a budget. All right, where are we at? What are you typing? A user.
I'm being
I want a
inspired by
document that
that
I can send.
shit
Oh,
user
okay.
stories Twitter account.
Okay. Are we writing a user story for this? I want a document I can send to people that no one fucks it up. Result. Different word.
All
Does
right.
Word export to PDF in a way that's nice these days? Docs does.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a user, what's the second one? I expect to happen. I want to happen.
I don't know. We don't do these kind of this format of user story.
I don't either. That seems way too simple. Although, do you know where that format of user story would be good? I'm just going to pull it in here.
I mean, the
As a
intent of this was
user,
for agile
as a
developers,
user,
and somehow people think
I
these are
want to
user experience things.
so that I've used something similar to this, very simple user story stuff for dialogue flows for voice apps.
Oh
I
yeah.
did some work on Google Home and Alexa, have done some work um, so that dot dot dot. And you have to build these really sort of loose dialogue flows because there's so many ways that people have to say things. You know what I mean? Like on a website, you click a button, but with Alexa, there's
Hmm.
95 different ways that you can say, put on a podcast. And so you get to build out these dialogue trees, and they're very very similar to this. It's sort of close to a script. As a user, I want a document I can send to people that they can edit so no one fucks it up ever.
I'm gonna try to convert that into a. See, this is the solution, and then that's good for developers. But when I'm trying to solve a problem, I don't know the solution, so
As a
I have a
user,
problem. I don't know what the solution is yet.
I
So
want others to print my document in the same way. Would be the real use case for a PDF. When I
yes.
need to share a document.
So we do job stories where I work,
Okay.
which is my contribution to the process, which frames the user's problem kind of from their point of view rather than like a solution.
We talked about this before. Like, I mean, again, the are we making something for the user? Are we making something for the business? Like, what do you write it from the perspective of? Because your client's going to read these and be like, no, we want them to do this. And it's like, yeah, but you got to be realistic about what your user expects.
Yeah, well, is that what they want to do? It's cool that it's cool that you want them to do that, but what do they want to do? And then we'll try and like
Oh,
funnel them in there.
dude, I did a dumb thing the other day. I did the
Um,
decision and I forgot that a representative from the client was on the call.
ooh, I can't wait to hear this one.
And so the team is discussing, the way that we wanted it to go, but there's a way that it has to go for legal reasons, and they're sort of murky and gray. And without knowing that a representative from the client was there, I was like, yeah, we could call it like, the good way and the bad way. Like one way is good and fun, and the other one is annoying and cumbersome for the user to use. And one of the developer goes, "Oh, Nick, you are so brutal. You're being so brutal." And I was like, what? And at the end of the meeting, the client piped up, and it was just the worst. Actually, they were pretty cool because, maybe like just having a moment where you can be totally honest and be like, "Look, I know that we're all dancing around the truth here, and like we want to accommodate your business in every single way, but to get to your goals, we just need to cut all the shit here, please." Like, have you ever had a client that you wish, man, if I could talk to you about this in a bar at 8 o'clock at night while we're like eating dinner and sharing a beer, I could totally explain all of this to you, but I can't, and we're in a meeting room, and I got to be appropriate and explain it the right way,
Yeah, yes, I
as
hear.
opposed to just going like, dude, come on, your shit is fucked. Like, just,
I wish,
we can
yeah,
change it.
I wish there was more of a better line for that because I found out when one of my colleagues like gave his notice, so he was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that I think that kind of I don't know like kind of freed him up from like, all right, I'm leaving. What's the worst that can happen? And like I told him after, I'm like, dude, I've never heard you sound like more confident in meetings than now. And it's like you're quitting.
Yeah,
It's like maybe you kind of needed like I don't know, you know what I
maybe
mean?
you
Like you
needed
got
that. Maybe you were
nothing
worried
to
about,
lose because I'm leaving.
speaking your
So
truth. Well, it's a tough thing to do. Maybe it takes a certain amount of experience. I mean,
I kind of
you
taught.
you go from being the person with all the questions to the person that has a certain amount of the answers, and just being able to speak to them because you know they're the truth. That's confidence and effort and experience. Not me. I'm terrified every time.
I'm starting to loosen up.
Here's my strategy. Somebody wants an idea from you, client wants an idea, clam up. Just clam right up. Clamp it down. Make them nervous.
I've also learned via user testing a lot of, but it works in meetings too. It's like people hate silence. I've used this to my advantage in like user and usability testing and interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to use it to my advantage at work now too. It's the awkward silence strategy. Everyone hates awkward silence, so people will fill that silence. If you're doing user testing and like you want feedback, it's hard, but if you can shut your mouth for if you can be quiet for 5 whole seconds, the silence will drive everyone insane and they'll start talking and you'll get good information. I've started to do that at work now where I just don't say anything. And then someone else has to. Because there's not just going to be silence. Someone will say something.
Unless it's a presentation of your work, like I'm here to listen. Like I want to hear all your stuff. Tell me all your stuff, and we'll filter it through a design process into something good. But yeah, it's tell me all your stuff.
Yeah, keep talking. Tell me what you think's important.
Tell me.
I'm not going to ask. I'm going to wait for you to tell. Dig deep.
Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to decide what this needs to be, and then I'm going to sit here and listen to you talk for 2 hours, and then I'm going to convince you to go my way.
Just keep talking. I already know. I've got this design in my head. This is going to be a bunch of boxes.
Bad design.
Boxes and
That's
buttons
such bad
and a list
design.
of shit.
Yeah, I decided, you know what? I saw something really cool that was sort of like your product before we had this meeting, and that's going to be it. So why don't you get through your jibber jabber, and I'll tell you what's wrong.
Yeah,
I'm a designer. I'm a UI designer.
Idea.
That's the difference between UX, UI. And that was always the opinion. And I've heard people say in relation to UX, right? Like nuance doesn't matter. Like your expertise doesn't matter. They need to be 100% researched decisions. And I agree with that to a certain extent, but you as an experienced designer, like say we were working on a WordPress site, you know how WordPress works. You can speak to it. Mm-hmm. So when you're making decisions that benefit the entire process, not just the design process. So it does matter. You do need to know what you're talking about. It's not all research. If that makes sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And like as you get better, you know what to research even. Mm-hmm. Like it's like I have a good idea. I have a pretty good idea about what to do now. Here's what we don't. Now I know what I don't know though. That's where I get more confident. Yeah. Where it's like I know this, but I don't know that, and I'm okay admitting I don't know that because now we can go and find it.
No, there's power in that, especially in UX. Like say discovery. Say you're gonna do a mapping exercise. Is like, look, maybe none of us have the answers to this question. But we can all write down, we don't know the answer to this question, and we have an actionable direction when we move from this meeting, right? Like, how many people go to your website? Well, oh, Jesus, we don't know, and we don't do any analytics. In fact, cool, fucking great. That's not a disappointing answer. It just means we need to start doing, analytics and metrics on your site.
It's like, it's like, sweet, I can make a lot of money from you.
Exactly. And for you, the vendor, you're like, hey, we have another $50,000 billable item that we can add to your line. Actually, 50,000 for exactly what I was talking about is maybe a little high these days. But
you could figure it. I'm in Toronto. Don't worry. That's not.
Holy shit. Do you remember when SEO first came around and people were selling like $100,000 SEO contracts to make sure that your H1 tags were H1 tags?
Back when it was possible to like affect your rankings.
I had that conversation the other day. We need to consider SEO. Like, how does that affect the budget? And I was kind of like, I think if we're all just thinking on our feet, then nothing. Everybody in this room should know how to cater to that. And then we do a review with people who are experts.
We'll design a search engine friendly site, but in terms of SEO, I would say like, I don't know. I know how to build a good website, but in terms of if you're trying to drive traffic via search and you don't want to pay per click, I actually don't know what you should do. Like, I don't know anymore. I have no idea. And I don't want to pretend I do.
Accessibility is very similar. How do you make sure a website's accessible? Well, I mean, a lot of it's development. The other side is make sure your fonts are the right size. Color correct your website to make sure that there's no contrast issues that would be like detrimental to somebody in that situation.
Yeah.
But it's just a checklist of things. It's not like a magic thing that you need to go.
Yeah, unless you're gonna, yeah, exactly. Unless you're investing in a strategy for it, then
Yeah,
there's only so much you can
exactly.
do here.
I don't want to say that there isn't budgets out there for doing it, but it is something that you should know as you're building the
Yeah,
website.
that's a marketing budget. Like that isn't, you know, it's not design. I mean, search engine friendly site, sure, yeah, that's if you're building to accessibility standards and clean code, it probably is going to be search engine friendly already. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's a
I mean, yeah, you get in those
go
positions, right?
nuts.
Especially when you're a point of contact with a client or you're the designer, right? So they come to you to talk about stuff. Like
The people,
I have copy on websites that I wrote in mock-ups because I thought it was clever, that just make it to final because nobody notices.
same, yeah. Or it gets like it gets to the final phase of testing and it's like, why is there a picture of a bird on a hamburger?
It's like,
And I'm like, oh, that was placeholder text. I was just waiting for someone to say something about it. I wanted to
don't you
see how long
love
it
when
could go.
clients do that and you present it and you preface the meeting? You crawl right in their lap and you look them dead in the eye and you go, listen, every picture on this website is fake. Do you hear me? And they go, yes. And you kiss them on the forehead and you get up and you do your presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, they're like, well, what about the photo about the bird? And you're like, I'm waiting for you to hire a photographer, is what
Lorem
I'm
ipsum
waiting for you to
dolor.
do. Lorem ipsum dolor.
Yeah, I don't think it should say lorem ipsum dolor, but I'm open.
What's with all the Latin? You know what? The Latin text is really cool. It's really forward thinking.
I actually was doing so. Here's a reason why you shouldn't put lipsum in if you're doing testing.
Hmm.
Um, is because I had someone say like, it's great, but is there a way to translate this text because I don't speak Spanish?
Yeah.
They thought it was Spanish for one, so that was funny.
It's like some dead fake language.
It's like you're an American, you don't know what the Spanish language looks like. I guess I shouldn't be elitist. I don't
I
know.
think that
I can recognize the Spanish language if I saw it.
I I think that doing like full smoke test user testing. Oh my god, I've got the Horonis. I don't. Everyone, I'm so locked down here in Nova Scotia. Um, I think that you can't do full smoke test kind of user testing without real copy.
Yeah.
I mean, you read shit. Like everybody reads shit when they go to a website. If none of that copy is there and none of those graphics are there, how can you test it? And I think that you can paper test really high level points, like napkin drawings. But yeah,
Hmm.
copy content is king. People read websites. The
Well, and
words matter.
this was a product detail page, like for an e-commerce site too. So people are we're trying to make sure that they're getting the information they need to buy the product. But we left Lipsum in for the reviews and just thought, oh, we put real titles on the reviews section, but the actual
Mm-hmm.
text of the review was Lipsum, and people were. It was really, as much as I was like, damn, I wish we didn't do that. It made me happy that people were actually reading the site. So it's like, oh, the information we're collecting here is actually valid because the people are trying.
Oftentimes
So
they don't. People, particularly clients, don't read things. Sorry, y'all don't. As a user, when I need to share a document with my colleagues, I want to send them something that they can't edit, so they can't fuck up my next document. I want to. I'm trying not to get to solutions. I want to save a single file that I am able to send to whomever. Is that too solutiony? So that I don't fuck my document into a crater.
that sounds good.
No, that sounds good. That's good. This is a user story. So in its simplest form,
Well, this is your
a user
typical
story.
agile user story, right?
Yeah,
Would just
but
be this. they have this as a user part, which
Have you ever
doesn't offer
seen
any
any of
value.
these tickets where, as a user, I want you 15 bullet points?
Um, no,
I've seen some pretty
that
bad
sounds good
ones.
though. Well, yeah, we're having trouble because we use these job stories, um, and then, but if someone has like a bug fix, it's like change
Hmm.
this button text, and they're trying to like put it into a user story because that's
Hmm.
our process. But I'm like, look, I don't think we have to like jam. Why the user story is to help us solve the problem, but if we've solved the problem, then why spend time framing the problem unless we don't think we've solved it correctly, which is what I do sometimes.
Or you're assuming that your users are perfectly educated, like they already knew what the solution was, and they're just coming to you because they expect it to be
Or
solved,
no,
perhaps.
I mean like just the boss says I want this button to have a different word on it. It's like
Hmm.
why write a user story for that? Why can't we just put like change button text to this? That's when we get like I like sticking to the process, but when you like when you have to stick to the process even though it doesn't make sense, now
I'll
I'm
tell
like,
you, mysteries to solve after this break. We gotta take a
yeah,
fiver here.
take a 5, refresh our brains and come back with some more great user stories.
We should do user stories. Let's
I'm
do nothing
inspired by
but
that
user
shit
stories.
user stories Twitter account, so
That's pretty good.
I wish
All
I
right,
invented that. Yeah.
we'll be back.
1.
Are we
Welcome
back?
back. We're back.
We're
We're back, Nick.
so back. We're
Jeez.
back. We're back. Welcome to the Hi There Show. We are back. We're in the second leg of our user journey here. We're talking user journeys.
Talking
We're
journeys, we're
user
talking
stories.
stories.
We're talking stories. Stories are part of a journey.
Stories are part of a journey, part of the agile. You know, they originated from like agile software development.
Did it really?
Yeah. Yeah, user stories are agile. They're meant for developers. UX people pick them up because I think people think that they're like user-centered design, but they, in my opinion, they were never meant for that, and they aren't, because they make a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, I mean,
As a user, it's like, okay, so
I would
how
say
does it need to
that
get said?
I mean, I would try to base user stories on personas that I've researched. So we did, we had $1 million and we spent it talking to users and traveling around the world, and we have a complete understanding of what they need. That's where you would develop user stories from, but probably not. I've also come across it in QA, like a QA department will develop their own user stories because, of course, they have to test against it, right?
Yeah.
Like they're the person that when they're testing your product sits down and goes, okay, I'm Joe Jeremiah.
And I want to do this, and I expect this. I found I kind of got jealous of QA's stories were way better than the ones that we were given to design with at first. I had to say, like, look, I would love to have like this kind of clarity when I'm designing something, because like we failed UAT pretty badly in a lot of ways. User acceptance testing, or testing, quality assurance, like does it work? We failed it in a lot of ways because the user stories that people wrote for testing, we never designed for that stuff. We were never it was all brand new. They were introducing all this brand new like user needs and functionality in the testing phase. So of course, like it wasn't there. But then I kind of realized, all right, who wrote these stories? Because I want to work with that person, because they seem to really know what the user's trying to do with this product. So things are better now, but it kind of took a few months for us to realize that there was a disconnect between like where we were getting our information and what users were trying to do at the end of the day.
I don't think it's bad to surmise, like what you intend your users to do. And that goes back to, we were talking about what perspective do you write a user story from? Like their perspective or the business perspective. If you don't have any research and you don't have any budget or means or timeline to make that happen, then you should still write user stories, even if they're based on your own sort of educated guesses.
Yeah, try it. Try to put yourself in the head of the user and be like, this is what I'm trying to do. Someone should be able to answer that question. Give you a little bit of help on that anyway.
Well, leverage your client. I mean, chances are they've run this business for X number of years, or
yeah, clients like to give everyone likes to give their opinion. It's unstoppable. It's like tearing the world apart. Everyone's sharing their opinion. So when someone tells me our users don't want to talk to us, I have trouble believing it, because it's like, where are you got some special users somewhere that just don't want to talk, and people like to give their opinion.
In the room. Yeah, clients in the room are an opinion. It's like in a feedback session, you need to be aware that the people that are giving you feedback feel like they need to give you feedback, right? And that's the same for user testing. When you take 8 people, this is going way back to market testing, but when you put 8 people in a focus testing room, they feel like they need to give answers whether they care or not.
Yeah, so no one's going to say, I don't know.
Exactly. And you can't just, I understand, you can't just discount people's opinions, but if you point to a person in a room and go, what do you think? Or their boss, especially, goes, what do you think? That person will generate a piece of feedback, whether it's particularly relevant or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all been through that. I'm more on the vendor end of things, where you're more of a product person, but it's like, somebody comes up with an idea in the room that is labeled as feedback, but it's just an idea, and it ends up getting incorporated into the product because everyone looks around and goes, geez, that's a great idea. Let's do that. The
Oh, that
website
sounds
should
cool.
do this. That sounds cool. Oh,
Latch
that's
onto it. Yeah, and then when other people don't know what to say, they'll latch on to just what other people are saying. So it'll sound like you have all these people saying this thing, but
yeah.
That's why I don't like to do focus groups. Because
I don't know anything about it.
are too afraid to have a unique idea, which I understand. Like I get it. We're kind of
Yeah,
taught to not, usually
I
speak up too much.
I can do some. I think that I'm pretty capable of conducting like sort of a ground level grassroots user testing exercise, but the psychology and the nuance that user testing firms get into, like the people who do this all the time, it's a science. It's a thing, like how to talk to people, like how to test users, like what do
Hmm.
you show them, what do you sort of let them comment on, like there is a nuance to it to make sure that the feedback that you're getting is appropriate, because otherwise it's just sort of jumbled.
Yeah, or the biggest the one I always remember is like, don't use leading statements where it's like, don't kind of be careful about planting ideas in people's heads.
Hmm.
Like even saying something like, even if you're like, how easy was this to use? It's like, well, you're implying it's easy, and then you're asking how easy it was, but you don't want to say that. You're kind of leading them to think that it's easy and to kind of rate the easiness of it, whereas they can't even. That's not even a question that's really answerable. It's almost like, what's this task that we want people to do, and then kind of see if they can actually do it. Whereas if you ask them,
Well,
you
and
know,
if you're doing sort of a puerile UX exercise, maybe the question becomes, it's even further back than that. Um, I'm going to a website because I want to apply for jobs. So rather than asking the user, right off the bat, like, here's our job site, how does it make you feel? Maybe the question then becomes, what do you expect out of job sites devoid of our job site?
hmm
How do
apply
you
for.
expect to interact? How does it make you feel when you apply for jobs on our leading competitors? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, apply for a job. Can you do it?
Can you do it? That's user stories, baby.
You do agile, right? You
We do agile.
work in
Yeah.
agile?
So, I mean, for the longest time, I think agile for designers was this sort of thing that you weren't a part of. Like, you got a ticket that was like a bucket ticket for everything that was designed. But probably in the last 5 or 6 years, I've been interacting like a lot with agile. There was a point in time when I would have said you can't run a creative process, not necessarily like a UX design process, but you can't run a creative process through agile. You just can't. It's not how it works. Um, I haven't gotten to a place where I think I found a perfect process for that, but I do think it's possible. So yeah, I mean, I would say I'm an agile boy. Ian?
Yeah. Yeah, we do agile mainly for the development team for sure. We're trying to still figure out how we how we do design that way. We're getting better. The hardest part is, I think, and this is every part of work and business, but like, you get we our sprints, agile's like, you break it down into sprints. We used to have 2 week sprints, but now we have month-long sprints. So
Interesting.
in terms of like the design side, it's like, we have to do a it's kind of like, how much can we get done in a month, and it's really hard to estimate that sometimes.
Yeah, a month is probably a long time.
And then it's like,
For
so
a
it's
design process, in most sort of like commercial design processes, a month is like kind of what you're going to get, I would think.
yeah,
Wait, hold on. Let me rephrase all of that. In maybe sort of,
in like
no,
an
I'm going to
agency
take that all
setting.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's about right.
in an agency setting for a typical design process, like a month is a turnaround time for, I don't know, some sort of comps. You're not going to get the same amount of time in a world where you're working on like a singular product or whatever. whatever. I feel like I'm putting my foot in my mouth, but continue.
I mean, it's well, what I was trying to, I guess what I was curious about is like I'm sort of newer to it, and I'm trying to figure out like you do, you do your sprints, and then you do design, and then kind of development is always like behind the designers, right? Because
Hmm.
let's say, you know, the things that I'm working on this month is when next month, then that gets shoved off to the developers, right?
Hmm.
So I found like I struggle with like, trying to get everything perfect, like perfectionism sometimes.
Hmm.
So part of me is like, all right, I got to embrace agile. You gotta, it's just like any other deadline where it's like you have this amount of time to do your work. And then when that time is up, your work has to be done. So
Hmm.
it can be tough sometimes because it's like, I wish I had a little bit more time to work on this, but you got to hit your deadline. So you wrap it up.
Yeah, you make it work.
But then what happens when you're like, all right, you deliver something to the development team, you
Hmm.
make your decisions, and then so I'm trying to be strict with myself to like, all right, I gotta cut myself off. I can't,
To a
once you
point.
hit the deadline, you hit the deadline. But I'm trying to think like, is there a balance there of like, can I go back and be like, hey, this thing we did last month, I want to redo it this month.
I I mean that's that can be a
Not like the
tough thing.
whole thing,
Nobody
but
wants
like this one
nobody.
little this part, like this
Yeah.
one part of this product.
Or like we've gotten through this, we designed a thing. Like, how do we iterate on this? Because there's going to be chatter from the client. I mean, they always show up at some point during the dev process and go like, "What about this extra bit of functionality we never talked about?"
Mm-hmm.
I find more and more nowadays, like 50% of my design budget, not necessarily like a UX budget, or maybe it is more rolled into a UX budget, but like the graphic design budget is that consultation with the dev. So we're going to spend 50% of this budget up front. Man, I love that
So
icon so
weird.
much. Um, we're going to spend 50% of that budget up front to get through discovery, to do the UX exercise, to design something to get us to a place where everybody knows what we're making. At that point, dev is going to adjust the range. So dev provided a range. We've now designed a thing, in wireframe form, probably. And dev can estimate on that. Um, Beyond there, that other 50% of my budget is just consulting through dev. Say it's a 4-month dev process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in an ideal setting, you're in a design department that has people to cater to all of these tasks. Like you have juniors that do things like tear apart assets for devs and stuff like that. I've never worked for that agency in my life. Like, if you're the lead creative on that file, if you're the lead UX UI designer, you're going to end up doing that. So, through dev, it's like we need all of the assets. We need to change things. We need to be able to come up with designs in conjunction with development that are reactive to the client's needs, as they change. We need to get things ready for the app store. We need to do this. We need to do that. There's a tremendous amount of work that happens after. And I think that this is what you were talking about. There's a tremendous amount of work that happens after you deliver the designs and the client signs off on it, like to
Mm-hmm.
get to launch. Um, so, yeah, I mean, anyway, all that to say, looping way back, I put half of my budgets into taking care of that phase of the project.
That's probably kind of close to where we're at, I guess, too. Because if we take a month, say 4 weeks,
Mm.
for one, they roughly break it. They roughly give us a week to do discovery, and then the last week is approvals and changes.
Hmm.
So we kind of have 2 weeks in the middle to do the work. I tend to I try to get a lot of the work done in the
Not do any
discovery
work. You
phase.
tend to not do any work, is
I,
where we're
tr-
getting.
yeah, I get the work done early, and then I just kind of slowly release it over time so that because you never let anyone know that you're finished early, because then you just have to work more next time. It's like a budget in a sense. It's like if you don't spend your budget, they'll give you less next time. So it's kind of the opposite. It's like if you work faster
well,
than the time they give you, you're just going to have to do more work next time.
well, and with
So
design, there is like a creative ideation segment to it. I mean, UX sort of pushes that a little bit away because a lot of your decisions are so researched. But like, I mean, I don't know. I could sit down and bang out 6 templates in a day that would be so killer, and I could sit down for a day and I could make half of one of them. You know what I mean? It all sort of depends on what's in front of you. So yeah,
Yeah.
release it when you can. I mean, I don't know. I see my job like as a, I mean, I sort of use the term like full stack. Like I'm a full stack designer in that I contribute to the full stack of the design and development process. Um, I totally lost my train of thought.
Full stack.
I'm a full stack. Developers. Your job is to sort of protect the perpetuity of that idea. So the client signed off on a thing that we all work together to come on, and eventually at a certain point, no matter what you do, Figma, Sketch, whatever, you got to show them a JPEG or a PNG of your work or a link or whatever. Um, if you just punt that off to development, especially an external development team, what you get back 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, 6 weeks later is broken looking.
Hmm.
It's messed up, and you need to be there to consult on it to make sure that it goes okay. I mean, expecting someone to take a design, even something that's built in XD or Figma, and bang their heads against the wall for a month to make it happen without any kind of consultation in there almost feels cruel to me at a certain point.
Yeah,
Because
especially
like
because
I'm
like
here for 3 weeks. I show up, we do a bunch of really cool discovery exercises, and I hand you designs. These people over here are going to be doing it for 2 months,
and
right up until
they're
launch.
gonna come into they're gonna run into stuff. For me anyway, that our developers run into edge cases of things that I never thought of, and usually I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
good at that. It's like, oh, this is gonna happen. I better account for that. But no, they'll come in like, what about this? What about that? And I'm like,
Did you ever get a really
god
dumb one
damn
that
it.
makes you feel so fucking stupid?
Oh man,
Like
way too
someone's like,
often.
"Wait, does this need a close button on it?" And you're like, "It does." I
You're like,
just
how do they
that's on
close it?
me.
It's like, no, they don't. Some
They don't.
they don't
Hold
have to.
on.
No, they can't
Hmm.
close it.
You just hit escape. Everybody knows that you just hit escape.
Yeah.
It's a tough line to draw. So I mean, for me as a designer, I feel like my mandate is to stay as close to that development process as possible. And two, like you sort of function as a point of contact with the client through that process too, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well, I
you're
guess.
responsible for mapping out the front end. So you're the person that they're going to call. Like they're not calling the iOS dev to talk about a new button. They're calling the designer. So you get a, oh, fuck, I hate this. The client makes a change. They get in touch with you because you've been working on the front end with them. And then you, the next morning at Scrum, have to go in. This is back to the Agile process. Everyone who works in Agile knows what a Scrum is. You have to go back to the Scrum and go, hey guys, we got this new thing and there's a change. And you almost have to sell the internal team on it.
Mm,
Like,
well,
hey, so was talking to the client last night and they want this search box to be type ahead. Can you guys give me an estimate in terms of how much effort that would take? That's a tough thing to do because you're a designer walking into a room full of developers who, again, have been banging their heads off the wall for a month trying to make this fucking stupid thing you design work, and you're going like, actually, it needs to be different.
yeah, I'm gonna walk some of this back. I know you already did the work, but it's
Yeah, it turns out,
sorry,
and it
throw it
swings
away.
both ways.
It's funny
It
because
swings both ways.
I don't have clients, but I kind of have that role still. Like we have
Mm-hmm.
product owner, which is basically the client, but they're not external. They're part of the same company as me. But they own, they're the product owner, which means like they
They're the
own it.
signature with which,
They get
yeah.
to decide what it is. And yeah, we have two of them, and so yeah.
Yeah, I've worked with people like that. Producers are often a term that I hear, and those are the people that are supposed to represent the client in the room. To which I would always
Mm.
say, just get the fucking client in the room. What are they busy? They're spending $100,000 on this. Why don't we get them here and get their opinion? But everybody does it different.
Yeah. What are those clients? I want to get them in here.
Those goddamn clients, get them in here. Just ask them a question. Have you ever gotten that one? Gotten there where you're like, why don't we just ask them?
I
It's not. This isn't an inappropriate question. We're just allowed to ask them. Like, we don't need to know the answer to
Yeah,
this.
I've been in meetings with like a lot of people just, talking in circles about how puzzled we. It's like, man, maybe they do what? Well, no, people log in and then they do this. It's like, no, 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 they can't do that. They have to be able to do this, and it's like, oh man,
But
I
then you
don't
talk
know.
to the
It's like
client, and they're like, I don't care. Let them do it. I don't.
well, and then
Whatever.
I'm almost thinking like it's almost like they're trying to figure this out where it's like it's it's illegal to ask the client, so it's like we gotta, you know what I mean? It's
Well,
like no, you're actually
asking
allowed
the
to ask
client
them.
asking the client means we haven't done our research, and it's like, well, that's not
No, that
true.
is the
Like, there's
research.
yeah, that fair enough. Yeah, that is we got to talk to them.
I
They
used to,
appreciate
well,
that. Turns
to be
out.
to be fair, I used to think my job was to design the thing, like just go make it. Like you should know what to do. But I realized that oh, you don't know what to do right off the bat. Like you have to do some research and ask questions. My job, I can figure out the answer, but I don't have the answer in my head immediately. I used to think that at a meeting or something, it would be like, here's blah 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 blah, and it's like I should be able to pipe up and be like, well, here's your entire
Well,
website strategy.
I, I would bet in a certain number of those circumstances that you absolutely know what the best direction is, but it's
Maybe
the
by
same
now.
as showing your work, right? Like I can tell you the answer to an equation, but if I don't show my work, then I haven't really done it.
Yeah, I have an idea, but it's more about like I know how to
Hmm.
get us going on the solution. Not going to solve it right now. I'm making $10,000 an hour if I knew that.
I'm
Oh,
just
my
like, I
background
think
color
we could
changed.
probably, I say top of mind a lot. Top of mind, I would say we could maybe do something like this, but I would never commit to that without Dev speaking up. And then Dev speaks up, and I'm like, thank you. I mean, I even said that in meetings. I'm like, this is not a decision that I can make without development. Let's get their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And then development likes it because development often feels like they're left out of the design process. Like you're the froofy, fancy designer types.
Yeah, we're the cool
And
ones.
yeah, you're the lead singer of the band, and you're gonna be this huge scummy asshole and talk to the client, and then you're going to drop work on my desk. And you just want to get away from that perception, I guess. I find if everybody in the room is unified around the idea, they're excited about the idea that you have, everybody is so much happier to work on it as opposed to showing up and being that designer guy that's like, hey, yeah, it's all wrong. Change it.
Get it out of here.
Get it out of here. And they're like, we styled it like your file. And I'm like, well, that file was wrong. I'm a
Yeah, why would you do
designer.
that?
Why'd you do that?
I like this graphic.
This user stories with Nick and Ian?
Hmm.
User story time with Nick and Ian?
Kinda, yeah.
This could be like a segment.
I think it could be.
I'd like to user
That
story
brand.
anything. Like I want to user story somebody I don't know. What's a horrible thing that everybody has to do? Go to the DMV.
Yeah, taxes, like entering your. I got some.
Do you know what? Do you know what's funny about both of those things? When I go to the DMV, it usually takes like 20 minutes, and now with TurboTax, my tax takes almost as long. Like tax is like an hour for me once a year.
I have freelance this year, and I'm trying to do it. And I tried to. I couldn't understand the part about like I couldn't understand one of the sentences on the form, and so I like called them, and they're like, "Oh, you need to
We
talk
don't
to it."
know either.
They're like, "Yeah, no." She said, "I don't know. I'm tech support. You need to talk to a tax expert, and that'll cost you $100." And I'm like, "I don't need help with my taxes. I just don't understand the
It's
words
your
on the
verbiage
page."
is wrong.
And she's like, "Yeah, no, that's you need tax help." I'm like, "I don't. I know. I did the calculations already. I already have the numbers.
Wait,
It's just not clear what goes in what box." And they're like, "No, that's I can't help you." And,
Oh,
and I'm a paying customer too. It's not like not like TurboTax is free. So I did an angry. The funny thing is, I searched online and I found the answer to what I was looking for on their competitor's website. So I tweeted at them and told them
oh,
that I got the answer from Wealthsimple.
did you really?
Yeah,
Wealthsimple.
yeah. Wealthsimple had it broken down about what to do with that form.
Oh shit! Speaking of which, I have forms from Wealthsimple.
Yeah,
I'm looking at your Twitter account. Sorry, my bad.
I just get so angry, and it's like the only thing, like, there's nothing you can do in that situation. It's like I know that, like, I'm kind of right here. Like, I'm not asking for help with it's not the taxes that I don't understand. It's your web page.
It's always kind of been like that. Like I remember, you and I used to run a small company, um, but like doing taxes for freelance and other work is just sort of like I'm expecting someone to call me and be like, "What the fuck were you thinking?" Like I'm gonna do my taxes and somehow 3 weeks later someone's gonna call me and be like, "All these numbers are wrong.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
what
getting
have you
audited.
done?" You're getting there's a SWAT team approaching your home right now. They're gonna wake your children. It's gonna be terrible. That's what I always expect. But whatever.
Well, that's why they say taxes. What is it saying? Tax is theft, or all tax is theft? Taxation is theft.
I don't know. We're in Canada and it's much less complicated. Feels much less complicated than here than it is anywhere else.
Except when you don't have like freelance or special any other side income, it's super easy. But taxes are damn high here, that's for sure.
Yeah, you
We'll
pay
have to
your
get into that talk.
taxes, break your arm. It doesn't cost anything. It's pretty good. Why is there no tech news? Where's all the tech news? Who is acquiring who? There's always someone acquiring someone. The latest tech news that I keep hearing about is chip shortages. Chip shortages all over the place.
Yeah.
Graphics cards, laptops, PlayStations, Switches, everything
What's the root of it? Because it used to be graphics cards, but now it's just any kind of chips. Even like iPhones are delayed because
I
of
believe it's like
some
microprocessors.
just general chip manufacturing.
Yeah, like I mean your iPhone uses, well, iPhone's a bad example. Most products use um chips that come from like mass manufacturers. It's not a custom made thing. Um, but yeah, semiconductors are in a short. There's a short of the minerals it takes to make them, as well as
I think that's the future. There's gonna
fucking
just
mass
be
man.
shortages of everything all the time. Like lumber.
If
You can't
you
buy lumber anymore. That's fucking
No, I priced out a fence in my yard, and I was ready to. I was ready to do like a breaking down Michael Douglas kind of scenario over lumber prices, but it's uh it's a mess. If you own old iPhones, you should put those in a drawer in your house, or maybe a safe place where the batteries aren't going to explode. But like all the lithium and cobalt and gold and everything that makes up these tiny semiconductors is all in short right now. I did get a launch day PlayStation 5 though, so the world can fuck itself to death because I'm gonna be
yeah.
fine with that
Got what you
forever.
need.
I got what I need. I got what I need. It's fine. Man, I got a launch day PlayStation 5 and it was an effort. I had to be this is the first time I've ever done this with any product launch in my whole life. I had to get an account with every store like on the internet and be logged into them all at once and completely ready at all moments. I got a Chrome, or not Chrome, I got a Firefox plugin that refreshed all my tabs at once.
Hmm.
And anyway, I got one. It's pretty good. I don't even use it. I'm a dad, so I don't get to play video games. I just like to own them and put them in my home. And that's good enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The idea that someday I could play it.
Yeah. It's not without hope.
It's not without hope, yeah. It's a powerful object.
Well, any other great experiences you wanted to share, Nick?
I don't have any great experiences this week. We ended up chatting for most of this episode, and I have to admit it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was good.
I like chatting about the industry at large. I would love to have some people in chat. By the way, we have had quite a few viewers tonight. We had a decent amount of playbacks. That's awesome.
Popping in.
Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Definitely like, because that helps the algorithm while we're broadcasting live. If you ever have any ideas, if you're a fan that is coming to the show once a week, please fire off your questions in chat. We want to hear from you. If you have a design thing, let us help you design it. Give us your thing that you want to design. We'll just make it live on air.
Yeah. Or any other chats too. It's like, are you a designer that have your own like things that you think about and want to chat and
yeah, fight us, call us out.
Or are you a non-designer that maybe wants to know some things about how us friggin' UX and design people think?
We're here for
ask
you.
Away.
We're here for you.
We're here for you. We want to spill.
Our viewers are users, and we're here for them.
They are.
They're users. I love it. All right, thank you so much. That was a great Thursday night. That brings us about to close. This was the Hi There Show. Check us out, twitter.com/HiThereTweets. Also, I'm at twitter.com/Nick Brunt. You can actually, if you just Google Nick Brunt, you'll get everything. Ian is Porcelain Duck.
Porcelain Duck?
It's like a duck made of fancy glass. All right, that's it.
All right.
Fuck off.
Have a great experience, everybody.
Have a great experience. We'll talk to you soon.